Welcome back everyone. So I'm pretty sure everyone knows by now the iPhone SE 2 is a phone that came out earlier on this year, and what was very interesting about this specific device was that it was rumored for so long, and the hype about this phone was such. I think it was one of the more important phones that came out this whole entire year, and it really showcased that Apple is seriously taking this budget priced phone seriously. I mean, they're actually one of more cheaper devices out in the market right now, especially with a device like an SE 2, and I think the only problem with this device in my opinion was that the battery really wasn't that great, but a whole 8 months later this phone has been out. It's still being talked about a lot every time I go into any subreddit for Apple and all that stuff. A lot of people are still talking about it, which is great, and I feel like a lot of people are using this phone as a main device, and rightfully so. For $399, I think that is a really good price tag to pay for this type of device. It's not that expensive, it's super comparable, and when you look at phones like the iPhone 12 mini and all these other devices, the iPhone SE 2 isn't really that far behind. The only thing it's really behind in may be battery size, but also most probably the screen and the way it looks and the body and everything, but it still feels like a very premium device. Now price tag wise, they haven't really fluctuated that much in the new market. They're still $399. I think I've seen a couple of deals here and there for like $349. I think there were some Black Friday deals too, but I don't really remember those too well, so they didn't really stand out that much. In the used market, they have kind of, cycled around that $300 price tag. So I've seen some for about $280 all the way up to like $320 in about that used price tag for unlocked models. So I would recommend going on Amazon, eBay. I'll find the cheapest ones on there and link them down below. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now, when you look at everything besides that, this phone, like I said before, luckily, there's been no huge problems with it. And that's a huge thing that I look at. When I look at a phone from its release date to now, I see and notice any problems. So far, I really haven't had too many issues. And that's something that's really nice. I could sit here and talk about the body and the screen size and everything all day, but we already know that stuff. Luckily, there hasn't been any problems with it, which is something that's very important. So chances are, if you still get this phone, it's probably going to be perfectly fine. I don't think there's going to be too many issues with it, hopefully. Now, it may be an iPhone 11 situation where it was perfectly fine for many months and even a year, but then randomly screen issues and all that stuff in a recall program. So nothing like that has happened here, so that's good. I have heard a lot of complaints though within the last couple of months about battery life, but I think that had a lot to do more so with iOS 14. Now, like I said before, the battery life wasn't that great to begin with, but it has gotten worse for a lot of people because of iOS 14. Now, for my tests, I did see that iOS 14 has had a humongous impact on pretty much all iPhone battery life. So it wasn't just this phone specifically, it was pretty much all iPhones. So that specific thing I can probably overlook, but this thing already had a pretty small battery life to begin with, or battery size to begin with, and the fact that it got even worse was something I wasn't really too much of a fan of, if I'm being honest. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind. But beyond that, luckily, smoothness factor is still there. iOS 14 has been a mess on a lot of devices, but right now on iOS 14.3, it's actually been pretty good for the most part, and I think just as it's consistent on all the other devices, it's just as consistent on the iPhone SE 2, which is really good. When you get a device, you don't want it to be the most inconsistent device on that software, and because there's nothing really too old about this device besides the body, it still has 3 gigs of RAM, which is good. It has that A13 Bionic chip inside of it, which is also really good. So you're really not going to be too far behind when it comes down to the smoothness factor, and the performance is still a top tier as well. It's still getting software updates for a very long time too. So nothing has really changed there. I think iOS 14 was kind of a scare for a lot of people, mostly because of, the problems that iOS 14 had. But I think how it holds up right now, it's a very consistent, very smooth phone still. Even though it has that home button, even though it has an older design, the internals, and especially when it comes down to the whole entire performance aspect, isn't that far behind. And obviously I compared it to the 12 Pro, the 12, the 12 mini, to a 12 Pro Max. I pretty much found out that yes, those iPhones are much better, but those iPhones are much more expensive too. So you have to keep that in mind. You can't just look at the phone itself and just, do a one-to-one comparison, because there's a lot of other variables at play. The SE2 was old, but the SE2 was older, but also, and it's cheaper. You have to keep that in mind. And that's probably another big change that's happened. We've gotten the next generation of iPhones. So whenever something like that happens, of course, there's going to be some differences. But I think ultimately the iPhone SE2 has held up extremely well in the last 8 months. I can't tell if it's been 8 months or 9 months. My numbers are wrong, but that's pretty much how I would kind of sum it up in my opinion. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section as well. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.